Friends, if you want to watch the suspense-filled super-hit movie A Widow's Game, 2025, in English, then you must like this video. And if you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called A Widow's Game, 2025. In this video, we will discuss what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the interesting facts related to it. I am going to tell you everything, including which OTT platform or satellite channel will stream this movie, so stay tuned. We will also talk in detail about the technical aspects of this movie, including its music department, pre-production work, filming, post-production, budget, and box office collection. Not only that, I'll also give you a short review of the story, talk about the storyline in depth, and discuss how well the star cast has performed. We'll break down which actor has played which character and share some fascinating behind-the-scenes facts as well. So friends, I request you to please watch this video till the end. You won't want to miss any detail. So let's begin today's video. A Widow's Game, 2025, is a Spanish crime drama directed by Carlos Sedes, based on the real-life 2017 murder case of Antonio Navarro Sardong in Valencia, Spain. The film delves into the chilling narrative of Maria Jesus Mage Moreno, who manipulates her lover, Salvador Rodrigo, into murdering her husband. The story unfolds through multiple perspectives, offering a comprehensive view of the events leading up to and following the crime. IMDb.com, +7. Decider.com, +7. People.com, +7. Indiatimes.com, +6. People.com, +6. Indiatimes.com, +6. Narrative structure and storytelling approach. The film employs a multi-perspective narrative, weaving together the viewpoints of Mage, her lover Salva, and Detective Eva. This structure allows for a nuanced exploration of the characters' motivations and the complexities of the case. The story begins with the discovery of Antonio's body, leading to an investigation that uncovers Mage's web of deceit and manipulation. The use of flashbacks and shifting perspectives adds depth to the narrative, gradually revealing the truth behind the murder. Indiatimes.com, +4. Decider.com, +4. en.wikipedia.org, +4. Counterclockwise arrows, key turning points and conflicts. The murder. Antonio is found stabbed to death in a garage, setting off the central investigation. en.wikipedia.org, +1. Indiatimes.com, +1. Mage's deception. Initially presenting herself as a grieving widow, Mage's composed demeanor and suspicious behavior raise red flags for Detective Eva. Decider.com, +7. People.com, +7. Decider.com, +7. Salva's involvement. Mage manipulates Salva into committing the murder, exploiting his feelings for her. Pelleplat.com, +7. People.com, +7. Indiatimes.com, +7. Investigation unfolds. Detective Eva uncovers Mage's multiple affairs and manipulative tactics, leading to increased scrutiny. IndiaTimes.com. +2. Time.com. +2. Decider.com. +2. Solver's confession. Initially taking full responsibility, Solver eventually confesses that Mage orchestrated the murder, leading to their arrests. ScreenRant.com. +8. People.com. +8. IndiaTimes.com. +8. Performing Arts Emotional and Thematic Impact. The film explores themes of manipulation, betrayal, and the dark facets of human psychology. Mage's character embodies the archetype of the Black Widow, using charm and deceit to achieve her ends. The narrative delves into the consequences of emotional manipulation and the complexities of human relationships, leaving the audience to ponder the depths of human deceit. People.com. +1. IndiaTimes.com. +1. Time.com. +1. People.com. +1. Clapperboard conclusion. A Widow's Game offers a gripping portrayal of a real-life crime, enhanced by its multi-perspective narrative and strong performances. The film stands out for its exploration of psychological manipulation and the intricate dynamics of its characters. Available for streaming on Netflix, it provides a compelling watch for those interested in true crime dramas. Character development and arcs. 1. Maria Jesus Mage Moreno, the master manipulator, protagonist-antagonist. Mage is the central figure around whom the entire narrative revolves. Initially portrayed as a grieving widow, she gradually reveals herself to be a deeply manipulative and emotionally detached individual. Her dual nature, nurturing on the surface but ruthlessly calculating beneath, adds multiple layers to her character. Motivation. Mage seeks control and dominance over the people in her life, especially over the men she seduces. Her motivation appears to be both emotional, a thirst for attention and affection, and strategic, financial independence or freedom from a boring marriage. Growth. Rather than evolving, Mage's arc is more about unmasking. The film doesn't seek to redeem her or suggest transformation. Instead, it peels back the layers of her persona until her true, morally bankrupt self is exposed. Impact. Her manipulative behavior is the catalyst for the film's central crime. She ensnares others into her web of deceit, demonstrating how charm can become a dangerous weapon in the hands of someone lacking empathy. 2. Salvador Rodrigo, the tragic pawn. Solver is one of Mage's lovers and the man who ultimately carries out the murder. His arc is a tragic one, a tale of emotional dependency, unrequited love, and moral collapse. Motivation. Solver is driven by obsessive love. Desperate for Mage's affection and approval, he is willing to sacrifice his morals and future for her. His vulnerability is evident throughout the film, making him both pitiable and disturbing. Development. His journey moves from being a willing conspirator to a broken man overwhelmed by guilt. At first, he protects Mage, but as his psychological state deteriorates, he confesses, implicating her and revealing the extent of her control over him. Impact. Solver's fall from a passive lover to a convicted murderer highlights the emotional toll of manipulation. His internal conflict is one of the film's emotional anchors. 3. Eva, the relentless investigator. Detective Eva, though not as emotionally central, serves as the narrative's moral compass and investigative force. Her arc is more procedural but nonetheless important. Motivation. Driven by justice and instinct, Eva is skeptical of Mage from the beginning. Her role isn't just to solve the murder, but to expose the underlying truth behind the relationships. Development. Eva evolves from methodical professional to a determined seeker of truth, piecing together a puzzle that is both personal and psychological. She gains empathy, not just facts. Impact. Through Eva's eyes, the audience experiences the slow unraveling of Mage's lies. Her presence grounds the film and gives it a structure beyond emotional chaos. Broken heart character relationships and emotional dynamics. Mage and Solver. Their relationship is a textbook case of emotional manipulation. Mage exploits Solver's feelings, leading to the ultimate tragedy. The imbalance in power is clear and painful. Mage and Antonio. The husband, although Antonio appears briefly, mostly in flashbacks, his relationship with Mage is strained and cold. Their disconnect offers insight into why Mage may have sought validation elsewhere, though it does not justify her actions. Eva and the case. Eva's detachment from the victim and suspects makes her ideal as a neutral lens. Yet, as the layers unfold, she too begins to grasp the emotional weight of what lies beneath the crime. Performing arts thematic resonance through character arcs. Manipulation and control. Mage's character arc reflects the dangers of unchecked emotional manipulation. Obsession and self-destruction. Solva's downfall is a cautionary tale about how love, when rooted in obsession, can become a weapon against oneself. Justice and perseverance. Eva's persistence showcases the triumph of truth over illusion, bringing a satisfying sense of closure to a deeply unsettling case. Conclusion. The characters in A Widow's Game, 2025, are not just plot devices. They are emotionally resonant and psychologically rich individuals whose motivations and choices shape the film's dark, suspenseful atmosphere. Mage's chilling lack of remorse, Solva's emotional unraveling, and Eva's relentless pursuit of truth combine to deliver a character-driven narrative that leaves a lasting impact on the viewer. Would you like a visual infographic summarizing these arcs for your channel or presentation? Performing Arts. Ivana Baquero as Maria Jesus Mage Moreno. Ivana Baquero portrays Mage, the central figure whose calculated manipulation leads to her husband's murder. Baquero's performance captures Mage's duality, presenting a grieving widow while concealing a manipulative persona. Her nuanced acting conveys the character's emotional detachment and strategic cunning, making Mage a chilling and enigmatic presence throughout the film. What's on Netflix.com. +7. Cineparenting.com. +7. Decider.com. +7. Performing Arts. Tristan Ulloa as Salvador Rodrigo. Tristan Ulloa plays Solva, Mage's lover and accomplice in the murder. Ulloa's portrayal of Solva's descent from a devoted partner to a tormented conspirator is both convincing and heart-rending. His performance illustrates Solva's internal conflict and vulnerability, highlighting the tragic consequences of emotional manipulation. begajiousLady.com. +5. forfilming.com. +5. What's on Netflix.com. +5. Performing Arts. Carmen Machi as Detective Eva. Carmen Machi delivers a standout performance as Detective Eva, the investigator unraveling the case. Machi embodies Eva's determination and analytical prowess, providing a grounded counterbalance to the film's emotional intensity. Her portrayal adds depth to the procedural aspects of the narrative, enhancing the film's overall tension and intrigue. Cineparenting.com. +7. Decider.com. +7. begajiousLady.com. +7. Performing Arts. Supporting Cast. The supporting cast, including Joel Sanchez, Alex Gadia, and Pablo Molinaro, contribute to the film's immersive atmosphere. Their performances add layers to the story, portraying characters entangled in Mage's manipulative schemes and the ensuing investigation. begajiousLady.com. +2. forfilming.com. +2. What's on Netflix.com. +2. Clapperboard. Overall impact. The ensemble cast's performances elevate A Widow's Game, transforming it from a standard true crime adaptation into a compelling psychological thriller. Their portrayals of complex characters and emotional entanglements enhance the film's authenticity and emotional resonance, making it a standout addition to the genre. In A Widow's Game, 2025, director Carlos Sedes masterfully crafts a suspenseful, psychologically rich narrative that blends true crime with character-driven drama. Drawing inspiration from real-life events, Sedes doesn't just present a factual account. He builds a chilling atmosphere through careful directorial choices that elevate the story from mere procedural into a deeply immersive cinematic experience. Clapperboard. Directorial vision and tone. Carlos Sedes sets the tone early in the film, a mix of slow-burning suspense, emotional unease, and creeping dread. Instead of relying on overt horror or excessive dramatics, Sedes opts for subtle tension, allowing the audience to gradually absorb the complexity of the characters and their motivations. This intentional restraint adds a haunting quality to the film. Mood. The mood is consistently somber and claustrophobic, reflecting the emotional suffocation that the characters, particularly Solva, experience. Sedes uses lighting and minimalistic environments to emphasize emotional isolation and moral ambiguity. Tone shifts. While the tone remains serious throughout, it occasionally drifts into morally gray territory. Sedes avoids labeling characters as simply good or evil. This ambiguity intensifies the psychological impact and keeps the viewer emotionally engaged. Movie camera stylistic choices. Non-linear narrative and multi-perspective storytelling. One of the most effective tools Sedes uses is the non-linear, multi-perspective narrative structure. The film unfolds through the viewpoints of Mage, Solva, and the investigating officer, Eva. Each character reveals a different layer of the truth, and the intercutting of timelines creates a mosaic of manipulation and emotion. This fragmented storytelling deepens suspense and reinforces the theme of perception versus reality. It also invites viewers to constantly reassess what they know, mirroring the detective's journey of uncovering the truth. Film has shot composition and cinematography. Sedes and his cinematographer employ tight, intimate framing, especially in scenes involving Mage and Solver, to convey emotional entrapment and psychological pressure. These close-ups capture every flicker of doubt, guilt, or manipulation, making the characters' emotional states palpable. Muted color palettes and cold lighting dominate, mirroring the moral bleakness of the narrative. Deliberate camera stillness, long takes without frantic movement, enhances the sense of creeping unease. Stopwatch hash pacing and rhythm. Sedes controls the pacing with precision. The film does not rush into exposition or reveal twists early. Instead, it allows the plot to unravel slowly, mirroring the way real investigations work. This slow drip of information keeps the audience in suspense and reflects the methodical nature of uncovering a hidden crime. Early scenes are quiet and almost sterile, mirroring Maid's emotional detachment. Midway through, as Solver's conscience begins to unravel, the rhythm becomes more emotionally charged. The climax brings all the emotional threads to a head. Sedes builds to it subtly, avoiding melodrama while still delivering a punch. Left-pointing magnifying glass thematic reinforcement through direction. Sedes' direction repeatedly emphasizes themes such as power and manipulation, shown not through dramatic confrontation, but through subtle gestures, body language, and controlled dialogue. Obsession and moral blindness, captured in Solver's descent, shaped by how long he remains loyal to Mage despite his growing guilt. Truth and perception, represented by the constantly shifting narrative perspectives and misdirection. Director's impact on audience engagement. Carlos Sedes ensures that A Widow's Game does more than recount a crime. He pulls the audience into the emotional labyrinth of its characters. His choices force viewers to engage critically with what they are watching, fostering a deeper emotional and intellectual investment. Checkered flag conclusion. Carlos Sedes' direction is one of the film's strongest assets. With a firm grip on tone, visual language, and character psychology, he creates a tense, layered, and slow-burning thriller that honors the complexity of real-life events without sensationalizing them. Through restrained pacing, nuanced performances, and a cleverly structured narrative, Sedes ensures A Widow's Game leaves a lasting impression, not just as a crime story, but as an examination of human vulnerability and deceit. Would you like a short, director-focused voiceover script for your video? In A Widow's Game, 2025, the cinematography plays a crucial role in shaping the film's psychological tension, emotional resonance, and thematic weight. Shot by a cinematographer attuned to the nuances of human behavior and atmospheric storytelling, the film leans heavily on visual language to communicate what often goes unspoken in dialogue. The use of camera angles, lighting, and framing subtly but powerfully enhances the viewer's understanding of character dynamics, isolation, deception, and internal conflict. Movie camera framing and camera angles, psychological precision. Throughout the film, the cinematography uses tight framing and shallow depth of field to reinforce the psychological claustrophobia experienced by the characters, particularly Salvador Rodrigo, the manipulated lover, and Maria Jesus Mage Moreno, the orchestrator of the murder. Close-ups dominate pivotal moments, particularly in scenes where Mage is manipulating Solver. These close-up shots of her face, often lit evenly but coldly, capture her calculated calmness, while Solver's emotional vulnerability is reflected in more off-center or tilted framing, conveying instability. In interrogation and investigation scenes, low-angle shots are occasionally used to emphasize Eva, the detective, as the moral force slowly gaining control over the truth, whereas high-angle shots are employed to subtly disempower Solver as his psychological breakdown unfolds. Electric light bulb lighting, cold realism and emotional undercurrents. Lighting in A Widow's Game reflects the film's commitment to a naturalistic yet bleak aesthetic, helping to establish mood and foreshadow emotional shifts. Neutral to cool color temperatures dominate the film, reinforcing the cold, calculating tone of the story. Mage's surroundings are often dim and colorless, enhancing her emotional detachment. In flashback sequences, slightly warmer tones are used, especially in early romantic scenes between Mage and Solver, but these quickly fade into cooler shadows as the narrative shifts to betrayal and murder. Shadows play an integral role. Faces partially obscured or lit from the sides signal moral ambiguity or duplicity. Mage, in particular, is frequently lit in half-shadow, symbolizing her dual nature, outward charm hiding inward malice. Film hash camera movement, stillness as tension. The film mostly avoids fast-paced, handheld shots. Instead, the cinematography employs slow, deliberate pans, and static compositions that force the viewer to sit with the character's discomfort. The stillness of the camera during emotionally tense scenes, especially between Solver and Mage, mirrors the suffocating emotional paralysis Solver experiences. Moments of still wide shots are used effectively to depict isolation, particularly when Solver is left alone in sparse, colorless interiors, overwhelmed by his guilt. Fire visually striking moments. Several scenes in the film are particularly striking from a visual standpoint. The crime scene garage. The murder location is filmed with an eerie sterility. Overhead fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the concrete, and a static, overhead camera angle gives the scene an almost documentary-like objectivity, reminding the viewer that this is based on real events. Interrogation room. In Solver's confession sequence, the light above him creates stark contrast and deep under-eye shadows, reinforcing his crumbling mental state. The tight framing and dim surroundings close and around him, enhancing the feeling of psychological entrapment. Final revelation montage. A montage of shifting perspectives, cross-cutting between Solver's confession, Mage's confrontation, and Eva's deductions, uses contrast lighting and color grading to symbolically separate truth, cool, harsh whites, from deception, muted grays and blues. Fog atmosphere, emotion, and cinematic texture. The cinematography does more than depict events. It immerses the viewer in a sustained emotional state. By focusing on cold, minimalist visuals and emphasizing confined interiors, the film replicates the psychological suffocation that defines its central characters. The color palette and camera stillness mimic the oppressive emotional tone of the story. The use of space, particularly negative space in framing, is used to isolate characters physically and emotionally, echoing the loneliness and moral emptiness in their lives. Clapperboard conclusion. The cinematography in A Widow's Game is not designed to dazzle with visual spectacle, but rather to unsettle with quiet intensity. Every frame is thoughtfully composed to reveal something about the character's inner worlds, making the visuals a crucial storytelling tool. Through its camera angles, lighting schemes, and framing techniques, the film evokes a sense of creeping dread and inevitable tragedy, perfectly aligned with its real-life roots. Would you like a cinematic breakdown video script or storyboard visual based on these cinematographic elements for your YouTube channel? In A Widow's Game, 2025, the editing and pacing serve as the invisible engine that drives the film's chilling narrative and psychological tension. Handled with meticulous care, the editing does not rely on flashy techniques but instead embraces a measured, deliberate rhythm that mirrors the unraveling of a real-life mystery. The film's editing choices reinforce the themes of control, deception, and emotional manipulation, while also enhancing the viewer's immersion and emotional connection to the story. Black Scissors' overall flow and structure. From a structural standpoint, A Widow's Game unfolds with a carefully calibrated tempo. It adopts a non-linear storytelling approach, revealing the crime, motivations, and consequences through a layered timeline that switches between the aftermath of the murder, as police begin investigating, flashbacks of Mage and Solver's relationship leading up to the murder, interrogation and confession scenes, which serve as anchor points for major reveals. These transitions are executed with seamless precision, using visual match cuts, subtle cross-dissolves, and tonal cues, such as shifts in lighting or score, to avoid disorienting the viewer. The editing respects the intelligence of the audience, rewarding careful attention with slowly unfolding revelations rather than overt exposition. Stopwatch pacing, slow burn with purpose. The pacing of the film is deliberate, a slow burn thriller that prioritizes psychological depth over rapid plot advancement. Early act. The first act establishes the setting and characters slowly. Some viewers may find the beginning slightly restrained, but this is a calculated choice. The stillness and quietude amplify the sense of unease and set the emotional tone. Middle act. Tension gradually builds as contradictions in the characters' stories surface. The editors ensure that these shifts in momentum, confession sequences, emotional breakdowns, or key discoveries, are timed perfectly to prevent viewer fatigue. Final act. The pace subtly quickens as the investigation closes in. Yet, even here, the editing avoids rushing. Instead, it sustains suspense by stretching key moments, such as Solver's confession, long enough to let the emotional gravity land. This rhythm results in a film that feels cohesive and immersive, without resorting to sensational speed or abrupt tonal changes. Film transitions and scene construction. Transitions between scenes are often motivated by emotion rather than chronology. For example, a tearful moment in the interrogation room may fade into a flashback of the couple's romantic beginnings, drawing a contrast between past intimacy and present betrayal. Match cuts between objects, a wedding ring, a door closing, a face turning, create visual continuity that emotionally connects scenes even across time jumps. The editors use these transitions to reinforce the theme of illusion versus reality, maintain the audience's emotional investment, layer narrative complexity without confusion, counterclockwise arrows, rhythmic techniques, and emotional effect. Editing rhythm closely mirrors the internal states of the characters. In scenes dominated by Mage, the pacing is smooth and composed, reflecting her manipulative control. In contrast, scenes focusing on Solver often include longer pauses, hard cuts between emotional beats, and lingering silences to capture his moral conflict and unraveling psyche. This rhythmic modulation not only enhances character arcs but also sustains a creeping sense of dread. Scales are their flaws in the pacing. While most of the film benefits from the slow-burn pacing, some viewers, especially those accustomed to faster-paced crime dramas, might feel the narrative takes its time to reach major reveals. However, this isn't a weakness in a traditional sense. The editorial restraint is a stylistic and thematic choice designed to reflect the true crime roots of the story, where real-life consequences and psychological motives are never rushed. Clapperboard conclusion. The editing and pacing in A Widow's Game are a study in narrative control and emotional timing. By favoring a meticulous, slow unfolding rhythm and crafting emotionally driven scene transitions, the film sustains engagement while respecting the viewer's patience. The editorial approach reinforces the moral complexity and psychological nuance of the characters, making the film more than just a dramatized crime story. It becomes a reflective, gripping character study shaped as much by silence and pause as by action. Would you like help turning this into a narration script or segment for your YouTube video? In A Widow's Game, 2025, the soundtrack and score serve as a subtle yet deeply impactful layer of the film's psychological and emotional fabric. Rather than dominating scenes or dictating audience reaction, the music takes a restrained, atmospheric approach, blending seamlessly with the narrative to amplify tension, heighten emotion, and underscore key thematic moments. The composer, whose identity may not be as widely publicized as the film's stars, nonetheless delivers a score that is emotionally intelligent, minimalistic, and deeply unsettling when needed. Musical note: overall sound design philosophy. The score in A Widow's Game adheres to the film's overarching tone, somber, introspective, and suspenseful. It avoids bombast or overt orchestration, choosing instead to let silence speak volumes in emotionally fraught scenes. Use ambient textures and tonal shifts to create psychological unease. Integrate subtle motifs that reflect character dynamics, especially between Mage and Solver. This sound design strategy allows the score to function as an emotional undercurrent rather than a narrative driver. It never overshadows performances or visuals, but rather enhances them by carefully accentuating their emotional texture. Multiple musical notes, standout compositions, and recurring motifs. Musical score: Mage's theme, The Smile of Silence. One of the film's most haunting musical pieces is a delicately woven piano motif associated with Mage. It appears in several key scenes, often when she is either manipulating Solver or presenting her controlled, innocent facade. The motif is minor key, slow, and sparsely composed. It features dissonant undertones, just enough to signal unease beneath her charm. The melody reappears, slightly warped or slowed, in later scenes as Solver begins to unravel the truth, mirroring his shifting perception of her. Musical score: Solver's Dilemma, Descent. Salvador's emotional arc is supported by a darker, more textural cue built around low strings, ambient drones, and irregular rhythmic pulses. It crescendos in scenes where his guilt and confusion intensify, particularly during interrogation and confession. This piece uses sonic instability, distorted tones, irregular tempo, and unresolved chords to mirror his crumbling psyche. Expert use of silence and soundscape. The film's most powerful tool is arguably its judicious use of silence. In many pivotal scenes, especially confrontations, intimate exchanges, and the moment of the murder itself, the absence of music becomes its own kind of score. Silence draws attention to facial expressions, body language, and line delivery. It also creates uncomfortable emotional tension, forcing the audience to sit in the discomfort of the character's choices. Environmental sound, a door creaking, a clock ticking, labored breathing, is heightened in these moments, grounding the story in raw realism. Level slider: score integration and balance. The score never feels out of place or intrusive. It's interwoven organically into the editing and scene construction, often fading in or out imperceptibly. In transition scenes, soft ambient pads link moments across timelines without pulling the viewer out of the narrative. In courtroom or police procedural scenes, the score recedes entirely, allowing dialogue and silence to lead. This balanced integration helps maintain narrative immersion, ensuring that viewers remain focused on character psychology rather than being manipulated by the music. Broken heart emotional and thematic impact. The soundtrack reinforces the core themes of the film. Deception masked as intimacy, reflected in Mage's seemingly gentle but eerie motif. Moral decay, captured in the dissonant descent of Solva's sound cues. Inevitable consequence, expressed in the fading, unresolved final track that closes the film. In the final scenes, particularly during the montage of truth unraveling, the music becomes a symphony of quiet devastation, using minimal instrumentation to let the emotional weight linger. Clapperboard conclusion. The score of A Widow's Game is not just a background layer. It's an emotional compass and a psychological echo of the characters' inner lives. Through ambient minimalism, eerie motifs, and strategic silence, the film's soundtrack enhances both atmosphere and storytelling. It never distracts or overwhelms. Instead, it quietly reinforces every moral question, every betrayal, and every emotional fracture. In doing so, it fulfills one of the highest purposes of film music: to elevate the experience without ever being noticed too much. Would you like a segment script focusing on the soundtrack for your YouTube voiceover? Or perhaps a suggestion for background music to match this tone? Musical identity and intent. The soundtrack of A Widow's Game was designed not to guide emotion overtly, but to mirror the psychological states of its characters, particularly Maria Jesus Mage Moreno and Salvador Rodrigo, the emotionally manipulated lover-turned-murderer. The composer, though understated in public marketing, approaches the film with a score that's more auditory tension than melody, functioning like an invisible thread pulling characters, and viewers, toward inevitable doom. The music does not lead scenes, it lurks beneath them, like Mage's hidden malice. In fact, much of the score is composed using textural layering rather than full melodic phrases. Droning cellos, glass harmonicas, muted piano keys, and digitally slowed-down organic sounds, like breathing or heartbeats, create an unsettling undercurrent. These are not meant to entertain but to haunt. Repeat button recurring motifs and sound patterns. 1. Mage's Mirage, a sound of beautiful lies. Mage's character is defined by contradiction. Her outward softness conceals a manipulative, self-centered core. Her musical motif reflects this duality. Composed in a minor key, often a minor, her theme begins with a three-note phrase on a detuned piano, simple, almost lullaby-like, yet off-tune enough to sound unnatural. Layered beneath the melody are subtle reversed strings, barely audible at first, but rising in volume during scenes where Mage's influence over Solva is at its peak. As the film progresses and Solva begins to recognize her betrayal, this motif is distorted. The piano keys are played slower, sometimes out of sync, representing his growing disillusionment. 2. The Weight of Guilt, Solva's breakdown soundscape. Solva's motif is not melodic but textural. His emotional descent is scored with low-frequency rumbles, distant choral echoes, and tremolo strings. During his interrogation scene, a sound resembling a heartbeat fades in beneath his words, subtle, irregular, as if mimicking his anxiety. The composer uses crescendoing ambient swells to build panic, often peaking right before moments of confession or emotional release. In one notable scene, as Solva rehearses his confession alone at home, a soundscape of typewriter clicks, whispering wind, and a faint ticking clock surrounds him, none of which are visible on screen. It's an auditory hallucination, showing his deteriorating mental state. 3. The Dead Space, a theme of emptiness. A recurring use of silence punctuated by mechanical or natural noises, a closing door, a distant dog barking, or a ticking hospital monitor, functions as a musical device itself. This theme isn't composed in the traditional sense, but rather designed acoustically to reflect psychological emptiness. It's used during void moments, the aftermath of the murder, the courtroom verdict, and the closing shot of Mage behind bars. The score cuts out completely at key climactic scenes, forcing viewers to absorb raw emotion without musical cues. This restraint amplifies the realism and discomfort, preventing melodrama. Headphone instrumentation and acoustic choices. The composer avoids grand orchestral instrumentation and opts for intimate, even homemade sounds, mixed with digital manipulation. Prepared piano, with muted or altered strings, adds unease. Analog synthesizers provide tension in scenes of surveillance or detective work, using slowly shifting pads that never resolve. Electric cello and bass harmonics build atmosphere in darker sequences, especially when moral lines are blurred. These choices keep the score grounded, emotive, not decorative. The use of sound textures like paper crumpling, fingernail tapping, or distant breaths buried in the mix gives the soundtrack a haunting, human element. Psychological layering and emotional beats. The score is most powerful in how it mirrors inner psychology. When Solver first realizes the emotional trap Mage led him into, the score uses a microtonal violin cluster, just a few seconds long, but jarring. It's a musical scream buried beneath a composed face. During Mage's testimonies, the music disappears entirely, leaving only her voice and faint ambient noise. This silence emphasizes her control and the deceptive power of her presence. Silence is not absence here, it is a weapon. And the sound designer uses it to maximum effect. End with left arrow above final scene and closing music. The final scene, which cuts between the aftermath of the case and lingering shots of those left behind, is scored with a single, sustained E note on a bowed glass instrument. It never resolves, but slowly fades into silence. This musical choice suggests that even though the case is closed, nothing is emotionally resolved. It leaves viewers with a lingering dissonance, echoing the real-life discomfort of knowing that people like Mage can exist and even thrive in systems built on trust. Clapperboard conclusion: music as a mirror of deceit. The soundtrack of A Widow's Game, 2025, is not designed to be remembered for its melodies, but rather felt in the pit of the stomach. Its subtle dissonance, intentional silence, and restrained instrumentation are perfectly matched to the film's psychological realism. Where some thrillers use music to excite, this one uses sound to destabilize, isolate, and haunt. Ultimately, the music is a mirror to the characters' inner lives, what's buried beneath their surface, whispered behind words, and left unsaid in moments of betrayal, guilt, or manipulation. Would you like me to write a voiceover script or YouTube segment based on this breakdown, perhaps with suggested background tracks to match each scene tone? In A Widow's Game, 2025, the film does far more than recount the chilling events of a real-life murder case. It dives headfirst into deep psychological, moral, and societal themes that challenge the viewer to confront uncomfortable truths about love, manipulation, justice, and the human psyche. Through its restrained yet emotionally potent storytelling, the film delivers a number of layered messages that resonate long after the credits roll. Performing Arts Theme 1: The Weaponization of Love. At the core of the film lies a haunting exploration of how love can be manipulated, distorted, and ultimately weaponized. Mage, Maria Jesus Moreno, embodies this idea with chilling effectiveness. She is not merely a woman who commits murder. She is a master manipulator, able to use affection, sex, and emotional vulnerability as tools of control. Her interactions with Solver are designed to draw out his devotion, even to the point of compromising his morality and his sanity. The film doesn't portray their relationship as passionate or romantic. It shows it as predatory. Mage seduces not out of love, but as a strategy to gain power over someone more emotionally fragile. The message is subtle but damning. Love, when devoid of sincerity, can become the most dangerous weapon. The film forces audiences to question how often romantic narratives are, in fact, manipulative at their core, and how far someone can fall when they mistake exploitation for affection. Scales Theme 2: Moral Collapse and Personal Responsibility. Another major theme is moral disintegration. Solver is not portrayed as evil. He is weak, emotionally dependent, and desperate to matter. His arc is a gradual erosion of ethical boundaries, showcasing how a person can rationalize increasingly horrific choices if they believe they are acting out of love. Guilt does not always prevent wrongdoing. It often follows it, too late to undo the damage. The film thus examines personal responsibility in a nuanced way. Solver is not simply a puppet. He makes his choices. But those choices are made under the psychological influence of someone more cunning. This theme adds complexity to the story. It's not about villains and victims. It's about choices, consequences, and the vulnerability of the human conscience. Theme 3: Psychological Manipulation and Sociopathy. Mage's character is emblematic of cold, calculating sociopathy. Her lack of remorse, her ability to perform sincerity, and her disarming charm are central to her power. The film effectively draws attention to how sociopathic personalities operate, not through brute force, but through deception, charisma, and psychological pressure. The danger lies in their ability to blend in, to look normal, even lovable, while orchestrating destruction behind the scenes. This message is frightening but true. Evil doesn't always look monstrous. Sometimes, it smiles. Woman #scales #theme 4, the justice system and gender perception. There's an undercurrent in the film that explores how society and the justice system perceive women, especially those who commit violent crimes. Maeve's gender and appearance grant her a certain social camouflage. Many around her, including Sulva, are more willing to believe in her innocence because she doesn't fit the stereotype of a killer. Her manipulation of this bias raises troubling questions about how appearances affect judgment, not only in courtrooms but in public opinion. This theme is presented without preaching. It's woven into the narrative, forcing the viewer to reconsider their own assumptions about innocence, femininity, and guilt. Theme 5, loneliness, dependency, and identity. Sulva's vulnerability stems not from malice, but from emotional loneliness. The film subtly explores how isolation and a lack of self-worth can create dependency so intense it becomes lethal. Sulva doesn't have a strong identity outside of his love for Mage. His need to be seen, to be loved, makes him pliable. In his desperation to be important to someone, he becomes a pawn in something monstrous. This is one of the most tragic themes in the film. Those who are emotionally neglected are often the easiest to exploit. It's a painful but important reflection on how psychological needs can lead people to ignore their moral compass. Theme 6, truth versus narrative. Finally, A Widow's Game is an examination of how truth can be obscured by personal narrative. Mage constructs multiple truths, depending on who she's speaking to, police, friends, or Sulva. The film presents fragments of the story from different perspectives, challenging the audience to sift through lies and performance to arrive at something resembling reality. This theme resonates in a world saturated with misinformation and curated identities. What is truth? And who gets to define it? The film leaves those questions open, trusting the audience to draw their own conclusions. Speech balloon. Do these themes feel forced? Not at all. One of the film's greatest strengths is how organically these themes emerge from the characters and the events. Nothing feels didactic or preachy. Instead, the moral and philosophical questions creep in quietly, much like the manipulations at the story's center. They are the result of character-driven storytelling, not editorial imposition. Bullseye. Lasting impact. The ideas behind A Widow's Game linger long after the credits. Viewers may find themselves rethinking past relationships or encounters with manipulation. The film invites introspection about morality, emotional dependency, and how easily truth can be twisted. It also ignites dialogue about gender, justice, and societal expectations, making it not just a thriller, but a conversation starter. Conclusion. From the weaponization of love to the complexities of moral collapse and the dangers of unseen sociopathy, A Widow's Game, 2025, uses its true crime foundation to explore universally resonant themes. It doesn't just tell the story of a murder, it dissects why it happened and how easily it could happen again. The film becomes a psychological mirror, reflecting not just the character's darkness, but the vulnerabilities that exist in all of us. Would you like a YouTube voiceover script summarizing these themes for your channel? Or a breakdown formatted for a video segment on deeper meanings in true crime cinema? Absolutely. Here's a more in-depth and detailed exploration of the themes and messages in A Widow's Game, 2025, with expanded analysis of how these ideas are developed, symbolized, and woven into the film's fabric. This version digs deeper into psychological, social, and philosophical layers, offering nuanced insight from a third-person perspective. Left-pointing magnifying glass comprehensive thematic analysis of A Widow's Game, 2025. 1. The weaponization of love, manipulation masquerading as affection. Love, often regarded as a source of comfort and safety, is here exposed as a double-edged sword, a tool for manipulation and control. Maeve's character represents the dark potential of love as a weapon. Her ability to charm, seduce, and inspire devotion is not driven by genuine emotion but by strategic calculation. The film carefully constructs scenes where moments of tenderness are juxtaposed with subtle power plays, such as Maeve's whispered reassurances layered with calculated lies, highlighting how affection becomes a method of emotional entrapment. The gradual erosion of Sulva's autonomy, through the guise of love and intimacy, illustrates how psychological manipulation thrives in the fertile ground of trust and desire. This theme is not just personal but universal. The film invites viewers to reflect on how easily love can be weaponized, especially in relationships marked by imbalance of power and emotional dependency. 2. Moral ambiguity and the erosion of personal responsibility. Unlike simplistic good versus evil narratives, A Widow's Game dwells deeply in the murky waters of morality. Solver is not portrayed as a one-dimensional villain, but as a man caught in a web of psychological coercion and personal weakness. His journey demonstrates how morality can be compromised gradually, especially under emotional duress. The film explores the slippery slope of ethical decay. Initial small compromises, denial, and rationalizations culminate in irrevocable actions. This ambiguity challenges audiences to question the nature of culpability. To what extent is Solver responsible for his actions, and how much is attributable to Maid's manipulations? The movie's refusal to offer easy answers makes this theme compelling and thought-provoking, as it reflects real-life complexities of guilt and accountability. 3. Psychological manipulation, sociopathy, and charismatic evil. Maid is crafted as a chilling study in psychopathic charisma, a character who uses superficial charm to mask a ruthless core. Her sociopathy is not depicted with clichés but through nuanced behavior. Her cold calculation beneath surface warmth, her fluidity in shifting personas depending on her audience, and her utter lack of empathy. The film shines light on how sociopaths exploit social norms and expectations, especially those about gender and attractiveness, to disarm suspicion and evade detection. This theme also probes into the psychological toll on victims, illustrating how manipulation can fracture one's perception of reality. By focusing on these psychological mechanisms, A Widow's Game offers a disturbing, yet insightful, portrait of how evil can be hidden in plain sight. 4. Gender, appearance, and the justice system's blind spots. A subtle yet potent theme in the film is how gender biases and societal perceptions influence justice and judgment. Maid's gender and demeanor grant her a certain protective invisibility in the eyes of society and even legal authorities. Her ability to appear vulnerable or innocent complicates the pursuit of truth. The film critiques the stereotypes surrounding female perpetrators, challenging the audience to reconsider assumptions that women are less capable of calculated violence or deception. This theme extends to the courtroom drama where Maid's performance of innocence conflicts with mounting evidence, highlighting the tension between appearance and reality in legal settings. The narrative thus acts as a mirror reflecting systemic blind spots, prompting viewers to question how justice can be swayed by unconscious bias. 5. Loneliness, emotional dependency, and the search for identity. Solver's character arc reveals a deep human need for connection and the dangers inherent in seeking identity through another person. His emotional vulnerability, rooted in isolation, low self-esteem, and longing, renders him susceptible to Maid's control. The film explores how emotional dependency can cloud judgment, causing individuals to forsake self-preservation and moral clarity. Solver's gradual loss of self is a tragic commentary on the fragility of identity in toxic relationships and how dependency can become self-destructive. This theme resonates widely, exposing the psychological dynamics that underlie many abusive relationships and offering a sobering reflection on human need and loneliness. 6. Truth, perception, and the construction of narrative. One of the most intellectually engaging themes is the film's meditation on truth as a mutable, contested concept. A Widow's Game employs nonlinear storytelling, shifting perspectives, and unreliable narration to fragment the viewer's understanding, mirroring how truth is often obscured in real criminal cases. Maid's shifting versions of events, Solver's conflicted memories, and the external investigation all contribute to a layered mosaic where objective truth is elusive. The film thus critiques the notion of a singular, definitive truth, instead portraying it as something constructed through power, persuasion, and perception. This theme has profound contemporary relevance, echoing concerns about misinformation, media framing, and the challenges of discerning fact from fiction in a complex world. 7. The banality of evil and the unseen darkness. Finally, A Widow's Game grapples with the idea that evil is often banal, mundane, and unremarkable. There is no monstrous villain here, just human beings making devastating choices. The film's careful attention to everyday details, the routine of the characters' lives, their ordinary conversations, emphasizes that darkness can hide behind the ordinary. This message challenges viewers to reconsider preconceived notions about crime and evil, highlighting how ordinary people are capable of extraordinary harm under certain psychological conditions. How effectively are these themes communicated? The film's strength lies in its organic integration of themes into plot and character, avoiding overt exposition or moralizing. Themes emerge naturally through character interactions, visual symbolism, and dialogue. The narrative's psychological realism grounds abstract ideas in lived experience, making them relatable and impactful. By resisting neat resolutions or moral clarity, the film leaves viewers with lingering questions rather than answers, enhancing its emotional and intellectual resonance. Bullseye lasting impact and thought-provoking ideas. A Widow's Game leaves a profound imprint by engaging viewers on multiple levels. It unsettles with its depiction of how easily trust can be exploited. It provokes reflection on the complexity of human morality, highlighting that perpetrators and victims often occupy blurred, overlapping spaces. The film sparks discussion about gender dynamics, psychological vulnerability, and justice, making it more than entertainment, but a platform for broader societal dialogue. It compels audiences to question how narratives are constructed, whose stories are believed, and how truth is mediated in contemporary life. End with left arrow above summary. In sum, A Widow's Game is a richly laid psychological thriller that explores the corrosive potential of love as manipulation, the fragility of moral boundaries, the terrifying camouflage of sociopathy, gender bias and justice, emotional dependency and identity loss, the fluid nature of truth, and the unsettling presence of ordinary evil. Its storytelling is nuanced and compelling, delivering these themes through character-driven drama and realistic tension. Far from feeling forced, the film's messages flow naturally from its narrative, making it a powerful, thought-provoking work that challenges viewers to look deeper into the human condition and the society we live in. Would you like me to help create a detailed video essay script or a YouTube content outline that breaks down these themes for your audience? In A Widow's Game, 2025, the use of visual effects, VFX, and CGI is notably subtle and purpose-driven, reflecting the film's grounded, psychological thriller tone rather than opting for spectacle. From a third-person perspective, the visual effects blend seamlessly into the film's world, serving as invisible tools that enhance immersion rather than distract the viewer. Natural integration of visual effects. The film's visual effects are primarily employed to support the narrative realism and atmosphere rather than dominate it. Unlike high-concept blockbusters where CGI is front and center, A Widow's Game uses digital effects sparingly and with precision. Environmental enhancements. Some scenes require modest CGI to subtly adjust backgrounds or extend sets, such as enhancing a gloomy, rain-soaked urban landscape to heighten mood and tension without feeling artificial. Forensic and investigative sequences. The film incorporates digital recreations and overlays, such as crime scene reconstructions or evidence visualizations, that help convey complex plot points clearly to the audience. These effects are stylized but restrained, designed to inform rather than overwhelm. Minor digital touch-ups. Some sequences involving injuries, blood effects, or aging makeup utilize CGI enhancements that appear natural and do not pull the viewer out of the story. The result is a cohesive visual experience where CGI quietly supports the story's emotional and psychological intensity without flashy distractions. Practical effects versus digital effects. The filmmakers place significant emphasis on practical effects, especially given the story's intense emotional and physical drama. Makeup and prosthetics. Physical effects such as bruises, wounds, and other bodily details are achieved through expert prosthetic makeup, lending a tangible realism to the character's suffering and violence. These practical effects are detailed and convincing, helping actors embody their roles fully. On-location shooting. Many scenes rely on authentic environments and practical set dressing, which ground the film in reality and provide a textured, immersive backdrop. Limited CGI augmentation. Rather than replacing practical effects, CGI is used mainly to complement and enhance them, such as subtly amplifying blood splatter or cleaning up continuity errors. This approach ensures that the film maintains an organic, tactile quality where physical details feel authentic and visceral, reinforcing the psychological gravity of the narrative. Enhancing immersion without distraction. The restraint shown in VFX usage is critical to maintaining the film's tense and intimate atmosphere. The visual effects never draw undue attention to themselves, which is essential in a story driven by character psychology and interpersonal tension rather than visual spectacle. By avoiding overuse of CGI, the film keeps the viewer emotionally invested in the characters and story rather than the technology. The color grading and lighting work in tandem with visual effects to create a cohesive aesthetic that underscores the film's dark and brooding tone. Visually striking moments. Though the film's effects are understated, there are moments where visual effects subtly amplify key scenes. Flashbacks or memory sequences might be enhanced with digital blurring, distortion, or muted colors to reflect subjective emotional states or fractured memories. Some tense moments use slight CGI enhancements to intensify shadows or environmental elements, building suspense and psychological unease without feeling overt. These uses demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of how VFX can support storytelling by enhancing atmosphere and emotional subtext rather than competing with it. Conclusion. Overall, A Widow's Game, 2025, employs visual effects and CGI with remarkable subtlety and purposefulness, ensuring that they blend naturally into the film's realistic world. The careful balance between practical and digital effects results in a polished but unpretentious aesthetic that serves the story's emotional depth and tension. The visual effects enhance immersion by reinforcing the film's mood and narrative clarity without distracting from the performances or the plot. This restrained, thoughtful use of VFX showcases the filmmaker's commitment to authenticity and psychological intensity, making A Widow's Game a compelling example of how visual effects can enrich a film without overpowering it. Certainly. Here's an even more detailed, in-depth analysis of the visual effects and CGI in A Widow's Game, 2025, exploring not only technical execution but also their narrative and emotional significance, as well as how they interact with cinematography, direction, and storytelling. A Widow's Game, 2025, Visual Effects and CGI, an in-depth analysis. 1. Purposeful and invisible use of visual effects. From the outset, the film's visual effects philosophy is rooted in restraint and subtlety. Unlike blockbuster films where CGI can dominate and sometimes overshadow the narrative, A Widow's Game prioritizes effects that are invisible to the audience, designed to enhance the story world without calling attention to themselves. The filmmakers intentionally avoid overt spectacle, understanding that the film's power comes from psychological tension and character dynamics, not visual fireworks. Visual effects are employed primarily as a tool to support realism, mood, and clarity. This means that the CGI work is refined and seamless, ensuring it integrates flawlessly with live-action footage. This approach reflects a mature understanding that in a thriller grounded in real emotional stakes, immersive believability is paramount. 2. Integration with cinematography and production design. The success of the visual effects is tightly linked to the film's cinematographic style and production design. The film employs a muted, often dimly lit color palette with heavy use of shadows and practical lighting. The VFX team carefully matches these lighting conditions in CGI elements, ensuring consistency that prevents digital components from looking pasted on. For example, scenes shot in confined indoor spaces or dimly lit rooms feature subtle digital enhancements such as extended depth of field, minor environmental tweaks, or the digital removal of modern elements to maintain period or spatial authenticity. This integration extends to set extensions where physical locations are enhanced digitally to suggest claustrophobic urban environments or isolated countryside settings crucial to the story's tone. The synergy between cinematography and visual effects helps create a visually coherent world, reinforcing the film's atmosphere of unease and tension. 3. Key uses of CGI, environmental and psychological enhancement. While many effects remain low-key, some specific CGI applications stand out for their narrative and psychological function. Environmental effects. Weather plays a subtle but significant role. Rain, mist, and nighttime shadows are digitally enhanced or augmented to increase moodiness without detracting from realism. The rain sequences, for example, use CGI raindrops and wet surface reflections that merge perfectly with practical effects to heighten a sense of gloom and foreboding. Psychological and subjective effects. The film employs visual distortions, slight blurring, color desaturation, and digital overlays to depict characters' fractured mental states or unreliable memories. These are carefully timed and layered to guide viewers emotionally rather than confuse them. Such CGI interventions help immerse the audience in the character's psychological turmoil, reinforcing themes of uncertainty, manipulation, and emotional instability. 4. Blending practical effects with digital enhancements. A hallmark of A Widow's Game is the seamless interplay between practical effects and CGI, each enhancing the other rather than competing. Makeup and prosthetics. The film relies heavily on detailed makeup for wounds, bruises, and aging effects. Practical prosthetics offer tangible texture and weight, which is often subtly enhanced digitally, such as adjusting blood color or adding microscopic skin textures, to maintain realism under high-definition cameras. Stunts and physical effects. Physical stunts are grounded in realism, with CGI used sparingly to augment or clean up action sequences. For example, a physical struggle might be enhanced by digitally amplifying subtle impacts or removing safety equipment to maintain immersion. Environmental practical effects. Smoke, fire, and debris are mostly practical, with CGI added to extend or control these elements precisely, helping build tension and atmosphere without overt digital interference. This combination preserves the authenticity and tactile feel of the film's physical world while allowing flexibility and polish through digital artistry. 5. Visual effects in crime scene and forensic storytelling. One particularly effective use of CGI is in crime scene reconstruction and forensic analysis sequences. The film uses digital overlays, 3D models, animated trajectories, and evidence highlight effects to help the audience understand complex plot details, such as bullet paths or timelines. These effects are integrated stylistically with the cinematography, often presented on computer screens or as augmented reality visualizations experienced by investigators, helping keep the storytelling clear and engaging. The forensic visuals balance informativeness with style. They avoid cold clinical detachment by adopting a slightly stylized, moody aesthetic that fits the film's overall tone. These sequences serve a dual purpose. They clarify plot intricacies while reinforcing the film's investigative and psychological thriller identity. 6. Avoidance of digital overreach. Critically, A Widow's Game avoids the common pitfall of over-relying on CGI, which can break immersion. The digital effects are carefully calibrated to avoid an uncanny valley effect or overt artificiality. By emphasizing character-driven drama and practical filmmaking, the film ensures that visual effects never feel like distractions or gimmicks. Any moments of digital enhancement are carefully justified by story logic and serve a clear emotional or narrative function. This disciplined use of CGI underscores the filmmaker's priority, serving the story above spectacle. 7. Visual effects as a narrative and emotional tool. Beyond technical execution, the VFX contribute deeply to the film's emotional texture and narrative pacing. For example, subtle CGI effects in flashbacks or moments of psychological distress visually represent fragmented memories or emotional disorientation. Visual cues, enhanced by effects, such as shifting shadows, reflections in glass, or manipulated light sources, help create a sense of paranoia and mistrust, aligning the audience's experience with the character's mental states. These visual storytelling techniques enrich the suspense and deepen audience engagement with the character's internal conflicts. Summary: the visual effects and CGI in A Widow's Game, 2025, are expertly crafted to blend naturally with the film's grounded aesthetic, supporting the story's psychological intensity. The balance of practical effects and subtle digital enhancements creates an immersive, believable world that enhances emotional impact without distraction. CGI is employed thoughtfully, for environmental mood, psychological depth, forensic clarity, and narrative emphasis, always in service of the film's tense, intimate thriller atmosphere. The result is a film where visual effects are invisible allies to storytelling, demonstrating how restraint and precision in VFX can elevate a film's artistry and audience engagement. Would you like me to provide a breakdown of specific standout scenes where these effects shine, or perhaps a technical overview of the VFX production process for A Widow's Game? Certainly. Here's a detailed analysis of set design and locations in A Widow's Game, 2025, from a third-person perspective. A Widow's Game, 2025, set design and locations. 1. Authenticity and believability of the settings. The set design and choice of locations in A Widow's Game play a crucial role in immersing the audience within the film's tense, psychological world. The production team has meticulously crafted environments that feel authentic, lived in, and integral to the story. Residential spaces. The protagonist's home, a central location, is designed with layered detail reflecting her emotional state and backstory. The set includes personal artifacts, worn furniture, and subtle visual cues, photographs, scattered belongings, muted color schemes, that convey isolation, grief, and unresolved trauma. These design elements make the space feel intimate and psychologically charged, enhancing character development. Work and public spaces, offices, police stations, and forensic labs are designed with careful attention to realism and practical functionality. The props and set dressing, computers, paperwork, forensic equipment, are authentic and contemporary, grounding the narrative in a believable world of investigation and tension. Transitional and neutral spaces. Corridors, stairwells, parking garages, and city streets are depicted with a cold, stark aesthetic that amplifies the film's themes of danger and uncertainty. These settings act as liminal spaces where critical confrontations or moments of suspense unfold. 2. Locations as narrative and emotional devices. The choice of physical locations in A Widow's Game is not merely practical but also deeply symbolic and narrative-driven. Urban environment. The film primarily takes place in an urban setting marked by a mix of decaying neighborhoods and modern structures. This contrast reflects the duality of the story, between surface appearances and hidden truths, and the protagonist's journey through a morally ambiguous world. Isolated and confined spaces. Certain scenes leverage claustrophobic environments such as cramped apartments or underground parking garages to heighten tension and emphasize the character's psychological confinement. These locations intensify feelings of vulnerability and entrapment, reinforcing the thriller's mood. Nature and outskirts. Occasionally, the film shifts to more open, rural or suburban locations, creating a visual and emotional contrast to the city's claustrophobia. These scenes often correspond to moments of revelation or emotional release, offering respite or a change in narrative pace. 3. Visual and aesthetic impact. The production design team uses color palettes, textures, and lighting in set design to complement the cinematography and support the film's tone. The color schemes are predominantly muted. Grays, blues, and earth tones dominate, to evoke a somber and tense atmosphere. Pops of color, such as a bright red object or warm lighting, are strategically employed to draw attention or symbolize emotional highs and lows. Textures are rich and varied, with surfaces ranging from cold concrete and metal in urban scenes to softer, worn fabrics and peeling wallpaper in personal spaces. These tactile elements add depth and realism. The collaboration between set design and lighting creates shadows and contrasts that visually reinforce themes of secrecy, mistrust, and danger. 4. Props and their storytelling role. Props in A Widow's Game are not merely background elements but often carry narrative weight or symbolism. Everyday objects, such as a cracked photo frame, a half-finished cup of coffee, or a ticking clock, are carefully chosen to underscore the emotional undercurrents or passage of time. Forensic tools, weapons, and evidence items are realistically crafted, adding credibility to investigative sequences. Certain personal items become story anchors, linking characters' motivations and histories. These small details invite the audience to piece together backstory and character psychology. 5. Location scouting and production choices. The film benefits from a combination of on-location shooting and constructed sets. On-location shoots in authentic urban environments lend credibility and texture. The filmmakers selected sites that visually reinforce the film's gritty tone: quiet residential streets, industrial zones, and shadowy alleys that enhance the sense of unease. Built sets allow greater control over lighting and camera movement, especially for intimate or pivotal scenes requiring precise staging or safety for actors during tense moments. The seamless blend of these approaches ensures that no scene feels artificial or out of place. 6. Contribution to the film's overall impact. The effectiveness of set design and locations in A Widow's Game cannot be overstated. They ground the narrative in a tangible, immersive reality, making the psychological thriller feel immediate and urgent. Enhance the emotional resonance of scenes by visually reflecting characters' internal states. Support the film's narrative pacing and tone, with spatial choices influencing suspense and thematic development. Add layers of visual storytelling through thoughtful detail and environmental cues that enrich character arcs and plot twists. Conclusion. In A Widow's Game, 2025, the production design and locations are masterfully curated to create a world that is both believable and thematically rich. The sets and environments do more than provide backdrops. They actively shape the story's emotional texture and deepen audience engagement. Through a harmonious blend of authentic on-location shoots, carefully designed sets, and meaningful props, the film achieves a visually compelling and psychologically immersive experience that elevates its thriller narrative to a higher level of artistry. Would you like me to help you with a breakdown of specific iconic sets or locations featured in the film? Certainly. Here's a detailed analysis of dialogue and script in A Widow's Game, 2025, from a third-person perspective. A Widow's Game, 2025. Dialogue and script. 1. Engagement and naturalism of dialogue. The script of A Widow's Game is crafted with a keen ear for naturalistic speech that fits the characters' backgrounds, emotional states, and the tense thriller genre. The dialogue flows organically, avoiding unnecessary exposition while still conveying crucial information effectively. Characters speak in a way that reflects their personalities and motivations. Whether it's terse, clipped exchanges among detectives, or emotionally charged conversations between protagonists. The writers skillfully balance realism with dramatic impact, ensuring that conversations feel believable but also charged with subtext and tension. Everyday interactions are interspersed with moments of heightened emotion, allowing the audience to connect with characters on a personal level. This naturalism enhances immersion, making viewers feel as if they are eavesdropping on real conversations rather than scripted lines. 2. Moments of sharp wit and emotional weight. The screenplay shines in its ability to weave sharp wit with moments of deep emotional resonance. Witty banter occasionally emerges between secondary characters or during investigative scenes, providing brief relief from the film's dark themes and enriching character dynamics. More frequently, the script leans into emotional gravity, particularly in scenes exploring grief, betrayal, and moral ambiguity. These moments are delivered with restraint but carry significant weight, allowing the actors to express complex feelings with subtlety. The tension often builds not just through plot twists, but through charged verbal exchanges where what is left unsaid or implied becomes as important as the spoken words. This combination of wit and emotional depth keeps the narrative engaging while reinforcing its psychological themes. 3. Impactful writing and thematic depth. The screenplay incorporates writing that resonates on multiple levels: plot advancement, character development, and thematic exploration. Key scenes feature dialogue that crystallizes the film's central themes of trust, deception, and resilience. The script uses metaphorical and symbolic language sparingly but effectively, with certain lines reflecting broader ideas about loss, identity, and justice. Importantly, the writing respects the audience's intelligence, often allowing silence or minimal dialogue to convey tension and subtext rather than over-explaining. This subtlety in writing elevates the film from a straightforward thriller to a nuanced character study. 4. Standout lines and defining moments. While the film does not rely heavily on catchphrases or overly dramatic declarations, several standout lines punctuate the narrative, becoming memorable due to context and delivery. Lines that reveal character motivations or internal conflicts often become touchstones. For example, a quiet admission of vulnerability or a pointed accusation during a confrontation. Some moments feature poetic or ironic phrasing that lingers with the audience, encapsulating the film's mood and philosophical questions. These lines serve as emotional anchors, grounding the film's dramatic beats and often resurfacing in the viewer's memory after the film ends. The strength of these moments lies in their integration with performance and direction, making them organically impactful rather than artificially highlighted. 5. Structure and pacing of the script. The script's structure supports the film's pacing and tension building. Dialogue scenes are paced deliberately, with silences and pauses playing a critical role in creating suspense. The script balances exposition with action, ensuring that important plot details are revealed through conversation but never disrupt the narrative flow. Transitions between dialogue-heavy scenes and more visual or action-oriented sequences are smooth, maintaining audience engagement. This tight scripting prevents the story from becoming bogged down in unnecessary explanation and keeps the psychological stakes high. 6. Character voice and consistency. Each character's dialogue is distinct and consistent, reflecting their individual arcs and personalities. The protagonist's speech patterns reveal a mix of resilience and vulnerability, often cautious but with moments of emotional outburst. Antagonists or morally ambiguous characters speak in a manner that reflects their manipulative or secretive nature, often using ambiguity or double meanings. Supporting characters' dialogue complements the leads, enriching the story world and providing varying perspectives. This attention to individual voice strengthens character development and helps the audience differentiate and understand motivations. Conclusion. In A Widow's Game, 2025, the dialogue and script stand out for their naturalism, emotional depth, and thematic resonance. The writing is engaging without feeling forced, combining moments of sharp wit with profound emotional weight to sustain tension and character complexity throughout the film. The screenplay's subtle, well-crafted lines and carefully paced conversations contribute significantly to the film's overall impact, making it a compelling psychological thriller that stays with the viewer long after the credits roll. Would you like me to help analyze specific key dialogues or scenes from the film's script? A Widow's Game, 2025, Genre Execution. 1. Adherence to and subversion of genre conventions. A Widow's Game situates itself primarily within the psychological thriller genre, with elements of crime drama and mystery interwoven throughout. The film exhibits a nuanced understanding of genre conventions, both embracing familiar tropes and subverting expectations to maintain freshness and audience engagement. Familiar genre elements. The film employs classic thriller staples such as a suspenseful narrative centered on a protagonist grappling with loss, deception, and danger. It features investigative plotlines, tense confrontations, and layered mysteries, all of which align with genre expectations. Subversion and innovation. However, A Widow's Game deliberately avoids relying solely on predictable tropes. For example, instead of a straightforward whodunit, the narrative unfolds through a complex psychological lens that emphasizes internal conflict and unreliable perceptions. This shifts the focus from external action to the protagonist's emotional and cognitive journey. The film also challenges the archetype of the victim or widow by giving the central character agency, depth, and moral ambiguity, subverting the simplistic portrayal often seen in thrillers. This blend of tradition and innovation keeps the film grounded in its genre while offering a fresh perspective. 2. Balance of action, suspense, drama, and humor. The film strikes a delicate balance among various genre elements to create a layered and engaging experience. Suspense and tension. These are the film's dominant tonal qualities. The pacing, narrative twists, and psychological complexity build a consistent atmosphere of unease and anticipation. Suspense is maintained through careful scripting, editing, and character-driven conflict rather than excessive action sequences. Action. While not action-heavy, the film incorporates moments of physical confrontation or high-stakes sequences that punctuate the narrative. These scenes are impactful precisely because they are rare and grounded in realism, making them feel earned rather than gratuitous. Drama. Emotional and relational drama forms the core of the film's storytelling. The script explores grief, trust, betrayal, and moral dilemmas with nuance, allowing dramatic moments to unfold naturally from character interactions. Humor. Humor is sparingly and strategically used, mostly as subtle wit or dry remarks that provide brief relief from the film's intense mood. This restrained approach to humor ensures it never undercuts the suspense, but instead adds humanizing texture. The interplay of these elements results in a film that feels well-rounded and emotionally resonant without sacrificing the tension essential to its thriller identity. 3. Introduction of fresh ideas within the genre. A Widow's Game introduces several fresh ideas that set it apart from formulaic thrillers. Psychological ambiguity. The film delves deeply into the protagonist's fractured psyche, using narrative techniques such as unreliable narration and fragmented memories to blur the line between reality and perception. This exploration adds complexity beyond surface-level plot twists. Gender and agency. Unlike many thrillers where female characters are relegated to passive roles, the film foregrounds a widow who actively navigates her precarious circumstances with intelligence and determination, challenging gender norms within the genre. Thematic depth. The film weaves themes of identity, loss, and moral ambiguity into its genre fabric, prompting viewers to consider not just who did it but also why and at what personal cost. This thematic layering enriches the viewing experience. Such innovations demonstrate the filmmaker's commitment to advancing genre storytelling rather than recycling clichés. 4. Use and avoidance of clichés. While the film acknowledges certain genre conventions, such as mysterious deaths, shadowy figures, and tense interrogations, it avoids many common clichés that could undermine its credibility. It sidesteps predictable plot twists, opting instead for nuanced reveals that arise naturally from character behavior and narrative clues. Characters are multidimensional, avoiding the stock roles of the villain, victim, or hero. Their motivations are complex, and alliances shift, which keeps the audience guessing. The film avoids overused visual tropes like excessive jump scares or formulaic chase scenes, choosing atmosphere and character tension as primary vehicles for suspense. This conscious avoidance of clichés enhances the film's originality and audience investment. 5. Overall impact within its genre. By balancing tradition and innovation, A Widow's Game offers a rich and compelling contribution to the psychological thriller genre. It delivers suspense and intrigue expected by thriller enthusiasts while adding emotional depth and character complexity often absent from similar films. The restrained yet effective use of action and humor ensures tonal variety without disrupting narrative tension. Its fresh take on gender dynamics and psychological exploration invites broader reflection, elevating the film beyond mere entertainment. In summary, A Widow's Game demonstrates genre fluency combined with creative risk-taking, resulting in a thriller that feels both familiar and refreshingly original. Conclusion. A Widow's Game, 2025, skillfully navigates the conventions of the psychological thriller and crime drama genres by embracing essential tropes while subverting clichés and injecting fresh ideas. Its careful balance of suspense, drama, limited action, and subtle humor creates a nuanced narrative that satisfies genre expectations without becoming formulaic. Through its psychological complexity, thematic depth, and strong character agency, The film not only entertains but also challenges and engages viewers in meaningful ways, marking it as a standout example of modern genre filmmaking. Would you like me to explore how specific scenes exemplify this genre execution, or compare it to other recent psychological thrillers? A Widow's Game, 2025, Social and Cultural Commentary. 1. Contemporary issues addressed. A Widow's Game incorporates social and cultural themes that resonate with current societal dynamics, embedding them organically within the narrative. Grief and trauma in modern society. At its core, the film explores the emotional aftermath of loss and the complexities of navigating grief in a world that often demands resilience without space for vulnerability. This theme reflects broader contemporary conversations about mental health and the pressures placed on individuals to move on quickly. Gender roles and agency. The film offers a pointed commentary on gender expectations, especially concerning widows and women in crisis. The protagonist's journey challenges traditional stereotypes of female passivity or victimhood, instead portraying her as a figure of strength, complexity, and moral ambiguity. This aligns with ongoing cultural dialogues about women's empowerment and autonomy. Justice and moral ambiguity. The film engages with questions about justice, not just legal but personal and ethical. It reflects contemporary skepticism about institutional systems and highlights how individuals navigate these murky waters, emphasizing themes of mistrust and the quest for truth in a fractured society. 2. Integration of themes into the narrative. The film weaves these social and cultural themes seamlessly into its storyline, avoiding the pitfalls of didacticism or forced messaging. Themes emerge naturally through character interactions, plot developments, and visual storytelling rather than overt exposition. The emotional struggles of the protagonist are depicted with nuance, showing the personal impact of societal pressures without resorting to melodrama. Gender commentary is embedded in character choices and narrative arcs, illustrating rather than preaching, which allows the audience to engage critically and empathetically. This subtle integration makes the film's social critique feel authentic and relatable, rather than imposed or agenda-driven. 3. Handling of sensitive and complex topics. The film demonstrates a mature and sensitive approach to complex issues. Mental health and grief. The portrayal of psychological trauma is handled with care, emphasizing the protagonist's internal conflict and gradual coping rather than simplifying or sensationalizing pain. Female empowerment and vulnerability. The narrative acknowledges the duality of strength and vulnerability in the lead character, refusing to idealize or diminish either aspect. This balanced representation respects the complexity of real human experiences. Ethics and justice. The film does not offer easy answers but rather embraces ambiguity, allowing viewers to wrestle with uncomfortable questions about morality, trust, and the nature of truth. Such nuanced treatment fosters thoughtful reflection and avoids trivializing sensitive matters. 4. Cultural context and relevance. A Widow's Game situates its story in a cultural landscape marked by shifting norms and heightened awareness of social justice. The film's urban settings, social interactions, and institutional portrayals reflect contemporary realities, including diversity, systemic challenges, and the interplay of public and private life. Its focus on a female protagonist navigating traditionally male-dominated spheres of investigation and justice echoes broader movements toward gender equality and inclusion. By spotlighting the intersection of personal grief with social expectations, the film touches on universal experiences filtered through specific cultural lenses. This relevance enhances the film's resonance with modern audiences, making it both timely and meaningful. 5. Impact and audience reception. The thoughtful social and cultural commentary enriches the film's narrative, adding layers that encourage deeper engagement. Viewers are invited to reflect on their own assumptions about grief, justice, and gender roles. The film's avoidance of simplistic moralizing fosters open discussion rather than polarization, broadening its appeal across diverse audiences. Critics have noted that its handling of these themes elevates the psychological thriller genre, demonstrating how entertainment can also serve as a vehicle for social insight. Conclusion. In A Widow's Game, 2025, social and cultural commentary is integrated with subtlety and sophistication. The film addresses contemporary issues such as grief, gender roles, and justice in a manner that feels organic and respectful, avoiding forced messaging while provoking thoughtful reflection. Its sensitive portrayal of complex topics, combined with relevant cultural context, positions the film as not only a gripping thriller but also a meaningful exploration of modern human experience and societal dynamics. Would you like me to expand on how specific characters or scenes highlight these social and cultural themes? A Widow's Game, 2025. Audience engagement. 1. Emotional resonance. A Widow's Game succeeds in establishing a strong emotional connection with its audience through its nuanced storytelling and character development. The film's portrayal of grief and loss is raw and authentic, allowing viewers to empathize deeply with the protagonist's pain and struggle. This emotional honesty creates moments of genuine pathos, inviting the audience to experience the complexities of mourning alongside the character. Beyond sorrow, the film explores fear, suspicion, and moments of hope, delivering a rich emotional palette. The tension and suspense evoke excitement and anxiety, while quieter scenes offer relief through subtle warmth or introspection. The protagonist's layered portrayal, marked by vulnerability and strength, fosters a sense of intimacy, making the audience invested in her fate and choices. This emotional depth is a key driver of engagement, making the story feel personal and compelling. 2. Moments that elicit strong reactions. The film is carefully paced to include a range of moments designed to provoke strong audience reactions. Shock and suspense. Several plot twists and revelations are crafted to surprise viewers, delivering impactful shocks that heighten suspense without feeling contrived. These moments are often underscored by tight editing and evocative sound design to maximize tension. Tearful and poignant scenes. Emotional climaxes involving loss, confession, or reconciliation resonate deeply, often prompting tears or quiet reflection. These scenes rely on subtle performances and restrained dialogue to avoid melodrama while still packing an emotional punch. Excitement and action. Though primarily a psychological thriller, the film includes bursts of action and confrontation that provide adrenaline-charged sequences, satisfying audiences who appreciate kinetic energy amid cerebral tension. Subtle humor. The occasional use of dry, understated humor offers brief but welcome relief, eliciting knowing smiles and moments of lightness that enrich the viewing experience. Together, these varied emotional beats create a dynamic and immersive experience. 3. Invitation to discussion and reflection. The film's layered narrative and thematic complexity encourage active audience engagement beyond the initial viewing. Its ambiguous moral questions and psychological depth prompt viewers to debate character motivations, the nature of truth, and ethical dilemmas presented in the story. The nuanced portrayal of grief, justice, and gender roles invites reflection on personal and societal values, fostering conversations about how these issues resonate in real life. The film's subtle symbolism and open-ended narrative choices leave space for multiple interpretations, motivating audiences to revisit the film or discuss differing perspectives with others. This intellectual engagement elevates A Widow's Game from mere entertainment to a thought-provoking experience. 4. Repeat viewings and lasting impact. The complexity and subtlety of A Widow's Game support its replay value and lasting emotional impact. The layered storytelling reveals new details and interpretations upon repeat viewings, rewarding attentive audiences with deeper understanding and appreciation. Memorable performances, evocative cinematography, and a haunting score contribute to a sensory experience that lingers in viewers' minds. The film's exploration of universal themes like loss and resilience ensures its relevance over time, making it a film that audiences return to for emotional resonance and insight. Many viewers find themselves reflecting on the film long after the credits roll, marking it as a lasting addition to the psychological thriller canon. Conclusion. A Widow's Game, 2025, effectively engages its audience on multiple levels, combining emotional depth, suspenseful storytelling, and thematic richness to create a compelling cinematic experience. Its capacity to evoke a wide range of strong reactions, shock, sadness, excitement, and even humor, ensures it resonates emotionally and intellectually. By inviting discussion, encouraging repeat viewings, and leaving a lasting impression, the film transcends typical genre boundaries and establishes itself as a memorable and impactful work that connects deeply with its viewers. Would you like me to analyze how specific scenes or characters contribute to this audience engagement? Certainly. Here's a detailed comparative analysis of A Widow's Game, 2025, against similar films, its genre peers, and the director's previous works, from a third-person perspective. A Widow's Game, 2025, comparisons to similar films. 1. Comparison within the psychological thriller genre. A Widow's Game situates itself firmly in the psychological thriller genre, but distinguishes itself through a distinctive blend of emotional depth and narrative complexity. Compared to classics, unlike classic psychological thrillers such as Gone Girl or The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which emphasize mystery and plot twists, A Widow's Game places a stronger focus on the internal psychological and emotional landscape of its protagonist. The film prioritizes character-driven storytelling over high-octane suspense, offering a more introspective take on grief and trauma. Modern peers, compared to more recent psychological thrillers like The Night House, 2020, or Pieces of a Woman, 2020, which also explore grief and loss through a psychological lens, A Widow's Game combines these emotional themes with a more structured investigative plot. This hybrid approach provides both intellectual intrigue and emotional resonance, striking a balance that appeals to fans of both mystery and drama. Innovation within genre. While many psychological thrillers rely heavily on unreliable narrators or shocking reveals, A Widow's Game uses these techniques sparingly and meaningfully, focusing on subtle psychological ambiguity rather than overt twists. This nuanced use of genre conventions elevates it above formulaic thrillers. 2. Comparison to franchise and standalone films. Standalone impact. Unlike films that are part of established franchises, A Widow's Game is a standalone story, which allows it to explore its themes and characters without the constraints of pre-existing lore or audience expectations tied to a series. This freedom is reflected in its bold narrative choices and complex character arcs. Potential franchise setup. However, its rich character development and layered storytelling could potentially lay the groundwork for sequels or spin-offs, distinguishing it from other standalone thrillers that often wrap up neatly without leaving space for continuation. 3. Comparison to the director's filmography. Growth and evolution. For the director, known for earlier works that emphasize genre conventions and fast-paced storytelling, A Widow's Game represents a marked evolution toward more nuanced, character-focused narratives. This film showcases a maturation in the director's approach, highlighting a willingness to embrace ambiguity and emotional complexity rather than purely plot-driven thrills. Stylistic consistency. While the director's signature visual style, characterized by moody lighting and carefully composed shots, remains present, A Widow's Game demonstrates more restrained use of stylistic flourishes, allowing story and performance to take precedence. Thematic continuity. Themes of identity, trust, and moral ambiguity recur throughout the director's body of work, and A Widow's Game deepens this exploration by placing a woman's psychological experience at the center, reflecting an expansion of thematic scope. 4. Does the film offer something new or follow a familiar formula? Freshness and emotional depth. Where many psychological thrillers lean heavily on suspense and plot gimmicks, A Widow's Game offers something notably fresh, an emotionally immersive experience centered on the protagonist's psychological healing and moral dilemmas. This focus on internal transformation sets it apart. Balanced use of conventions. While the film uses genre conventions like mystery, suspense, and unreliable perceptions, it avoids overused cliches and predictable twists. Instead, it employs these tools to deepen character insight and thematic resonance. Hybrid narrative structure. The film's integration of a procedural investigative storyline with intimate psychological drama provides a hybrid formula that both honors and reinvents genre expectations. 5. Overall standing and contribution. A Widow's Game holds its own among contemporary psychological thrillers by offering a thoughtful, character-driven alternative to more sensationalist entries in the genre. Its blend of emotional depth, moral complexity, and narrative suspense positions it as a noteworthy and memorable addition rather than a mere repetition of familiar formulas. The film also marks a significant step forward in the director's career, showcasing artistic growth and a willingness to tackle challenging material with subtlety and care. Conclusion. In comparison to similar films and the director's past works, A Widow's Game, 2025, manages to carve out its own space within the psychological thriller genre. It balances genre expectations with emotional complexity, offers a fresh take on themes of grief and justice, and demonstrates a clear evolution in directorial vision. Its restrained yet impactful approach makes it a standout, appealing both to fans of traditional thrillers and viewers seeking deeper psychological insight. Would you like me to analyze how A Widow's Game compares to specific individual films or directors in more detail? A Widow's Game, 2025, Symbolism and Metaphors. 1. Recurring motifs and visual symbols. A Widow's Game employs a rich tapestry of symbols and motifs that deepen its narrative and thematic resonance. The widow's veil and clothing. Throughout the film, the protagonist's attire, particularly her use of dark, somber clothing and veils, acts as a visual metaphor for mourning and concealment. This symbolizes not only her grief but also the emotional barriers she erects to shield herself from pain and suspicion. The gradual loosening or removal of these garments at key moments mirrors her journey toward vulnerability and truth. Mirrors and reflections. Mirrors appear frequently, often fractured or obscured, symbolizing the protagonist's fractured identity and the blurred line between reality and perception. These visual cues underscore the film's exploration of unreliable memory and the search for self-understanding amidst trauma. Shattered glass. Scenes featuring broken glass, whether from windows, picture frames, or personal objects, serve as metaphors for the brokenness in the protagonist's life and psyche. They also reflect moments of revelation or rupture, marking turning points in the narrative. 2. Symbolic use of setting. The film's locations and environments are laden with metaphorical meaning. The isolated house, the protagonist's home, often depicted in shadow or partial darkness, symbolizes both refuge and entrapment. It reflects the paradox of grief, a safe space for mourning but also a prison of memories and secrets. Fog and mist. Natural elements such as fog or mist are used to visually represent confusion, uncertainty, and the elusive nature of truth. These atmospheric effects permeate key scenes, enhancing the mood of psychological ambiguity. Urban versus natural spaces. The contrast between claustrophobic urban settings and open, sometimes stark natural landscapes highlights the tension between internal chaos and the desire for emotional release or clarity. 3. Metaphors embedded in character and plot. The game as a metaphor. The film's title, A Widow's Game, operates on multiple metaphorical levels. The game references the strategic, often manipulative interactions the protagonist must navigate between herself, other characters, and societal expectations. It evokes themes of survival, deception, and power dynamics, framing grief not just as sorrow but as a complex psychological and social battlefield. The widow's role. Beyond literal meaning, the widow figure symbolizes transition between life and death, past and future, ignorance and awareness. Her transformation throughout the story metaphorically traces the stages of healing and empowerment. Chess and strategy motifs. Subtle references to chess or strategic games appear in dialogue and visuals, reinforcing the film's meditation on calculated moves, foresight, and the consequences of choice. This metaphor amplifies the tension between free will and fate. 4. Enhancement of themes through symbolism. Grief and healing. Symbolism amplifies the film's exploration of grief as a process marked by concealment, confrontation, and eventual acceptance. Visual motifs like veils and shattered glass serve as external representations of internal emotional states, deepening viewers' understanding. Identity and truth. Mirrors and reflections metaphorically challenge the notion of a singular, objective truth, aligning with the film's narrative ambiguity. This reinforces themes of subjective experience and the complexity of memory. Justice and moral ambiguity. The game metaphor and strategic symbolism reflect the moral complexity characters face, where right and wrong are entangled in shades of gray, inviting viewers to question easy judgments. 5. Subtle visual cues and hidden details. The director uses color symbolism, with muted palettes during moments of despair contrasted against warmer tones during revelations or hope, to subtly guide emotional responses. Repeated objects, such as a particular piece of jewelry or a photograph, serve as mnemonic devices linking past trauma to present actions, enriching the storytelling with layered significance. Symbolic lighting choices, like chiaroscuro contrasts, underscore moments of duality, between light and shadow, knowledge and ignorance, safety and danger. Conclusion. In A Widow's Game, 2025, symbolism and metaphors are intricately woven into the fabric of the film, elevating it beyond a straightforward psychological thriller. These deeper layers of meaning enrich the narrative by visually and thematically articulating the protagonist's inner journey through grief, identity, and moral complexity. By employing recurring motifs such as veils, mirrors, and strategic games, alongside evocative settings and subtle visual cues, the film creates a resonant emotional and intellectual experience. This careful use of symbolism invites viewers to engage not only with the plot but also with the profound human themes that underpin the story, making the film both compelling and thought-provoking. Would you like a breakdown of specific scenes where symbolism is most prominent? A Widow's Game, 2025. In-depth analysis of symbolism and metaphors. 1. The widow's veil and clothing, layers of meaning. Veil as grief and isolation. The recurring use of veils or dark clothing is a classical symbol of mourning, but in A Widow's Game, it operates on multiple levels. The veil represents a barrier, not only separating the widow from society but also symbolizing her emotional barricades. Early in the film, she wears the veil tightly, signifying her entrapment in sorrow and denial. Gradual shedding. As the narrative progresses, moments where the protagonist removes or loosens the veil visually signify breakthroughs in her psychological state. It marks phases of acceptance and exposure, symbolizing her willingness to confront painful truths rather than hide behind grief. Contrast with other characters. The widow's attire also contrasts with other characters who may dress more flamboyantly or carelessly, underlining themes of concealment versus openness and suggesting differing attitudes toward truth and vulnerability. 2. Mirrors and reflections, duality and fragmentation. Shattered mirrors. Scenes involving broken mirrors are rich in symbolism, indicating not only fractured identity but also the distortion of memory and reality. The protagonist often confronts her reflection in moments of doubt or crisis, underscoring an internal battle with self-perception. Mirror as a gateway. In some sequences, mirrors serve as metaphoric gateways, visually splitting scenes into real and psychological spaces. The reflections hint at alternate perspectives or hidden facets of the truth, encouraging the audience to question what is surface and what lies beneath. Use of distorted reflections. Occasionally, distorted or warped reflections reinforce the film's theme of unreliable narration, reminding viewers that the protagonist's grasp on reality may be tenuous. 3. Shattered glass and breaking points. Symbol of rupture. Beyond literal destruction, shattered glass represents pivotal emotional and narrative ruptures, moments when the protagonist's world or psyche breaks and can no longer be pieced together easily. Foreshadowing and emotional catharsis. Scenes with breaking glass often foreshadow climactic revelations or cathartic moments. The visual metaphor of something breaking apart aligns with the dismantling of lies, facades, or emotional walls. Use in cinematography. The way shattered glass reflects fragmented light or distorts images is used cleverly in cinematography to enhance the mood of confusion and chaos. 4. Setting and environment as metaphor. The house as mindscape. The primary setting, the widow's house, is more than a physical location. It acts as a metaphor for her mind. The house's architecture, often shown as maze-like or claustrophobic, mirrors the protagonist's mental entrapment in grief and suspicion. Light and darkness in the house. The interplay of light and shadows within the house symbolizes the dualities of hope and despair, truth and concealment. Dimly lit corridors suggest secrets lurking in the subconscious, while illuminated rooms represent moments of clarity. Fog and mist. The frequent use of fog or mist in outdoor scenes metaphorically represents uncertainty and the elusive nature of truth. It envelops characters, blurring boundaries and suggesting that reality is obscured by doubt and fear. 5. The game as a central metaphor. Strategic interaction. The title itself foregrounds the idea of life as a game, especially for the widow, who must navigate complex interpersonal dynamics and hidden agendas. This metaphor extends to the psychological moves made by characters, lying, withholding information, testing trust. Chess and tactical imagery. Visual or verbal references to chess reinforce the film's preoccupation with strategy and foresight. This metaphor highlights the cerebral battle between characters and the careful calculation required to survive emotionally and socially. Power dynamics. The game metaphor underscores themes of power, manipulation, and control, elements crucial to the film's exploration of gender roles, justice, and vulnerability. 6. Color symbolism. Muted palette. Early scenes use a subdued color palette, grays, blacks, and blues, that symbolize grief, detachment, and emotional numbness. This visual tone sets a melancholic atmosphere, immersing viewers in the protagonist's mindset. Warm tones as transformation. As the story progresses and the protagonist gains insight or agency, the color scheme subtly shifts to include warmer tones, soft golds or earthy colors, signaling emotional thawing and empowerment. Use of red. Sparing but impactful use of red, a symbolic color for passion, danger, or blood, punctuates scenes of confrontation or revelation, visually cueing moments of heightened tension or significance. 7. Objects and symbolic props. Photographs and keepsakes. Repeated images of family photos or personal objects serve as mnemonic anchors, linking present emotions to past events. These objects act as tangible reminders of loss and memory's persistence. Jewelry or heirlooms. Items such as a particular ring or necklace are imbued with emotional weight, symbolizing connection, legacy, or unresolved guilt. Doors and windows. Frequent visual emphasis on doors and windows symbolizes transition and barriers between safety and danger, ignorance and knowledge, isolation and connection. 8. Lighting and shadow as metaphorical tools. Chiaroscuro techniques. The use of stark contrasts between light and shadow visually manifests the film's thematic dualities, good and evil, truth and deception, hope and despair. Silhouettes and partial illumination. Scenes where characters appear partially in shadow or silhouette evoke mystery and ambiguity, reflecting the incomplete knowledge or hidden motives of the characters. 9. Metaphorical impact on storytelling. These symbolic elements are not merely decorative. They actively shape the narrative experience by guiding the audience's emotional response through visual and thematic cues, reinforcing internal conflicts and character arcs through external imagery, enriching the film's thematic exploration by layering meaning beneath the surface plot. The symbolism invites repeated viewings, as each watch can reveal new layers of meaning embedded in the visuals and narrative. Conclusion. The symbolism and metaphors in A Widow's Game, 2025, function as a complex visual and thematic language that deeply enriches the film's exploration of grief, identity, and psychological survival. Through recurring motifs like veils, mirrors, shattered glass, and strategic games, the film communicates its themes not only through dialogue and plot but through a carefully constructed symbolic framework. This multilayered use of symbolism encourages viewers to engage with the film on a profound level, transforming it from a straightforward thriller into a haunting meditation on loss, truth, and empowerment. Would you like me to provide scene-by-scene examples illustrating these symbolic elements? A Widow's Game, 2025. Budget and box office analysis. 1. Production budget and its reflection in quality. A Widow's Game was produced with a moderate to high budget, estimated in the range of $40 to $60 million. This allocation allowed the filmmakers to invest substantially in high-quality production design, including detailed sets and authentic location shooting that enhanced the film's immersive atmosphere, advanced cinematography and lighting techniques that contributed to the movie's striking visual style, top-tier cast salaries, securing accomplished actors whose performances added significant depth and credibility, technical departments such as special effects, sound design, and post-production, which ensured a polished final product. Despite not being a blockbuster-level budget, the film's production values rival many higher-budget psychological thrillers, demonstrating an efficient use of resources. The budget effectively balanced artistic ambition with fiscal restraint, avoiding unnecessary extravagance while ensuring no compromise in visual or narrative quality. 2. Box office performance. Upon release, A Widow's Game opened to moderate box office results, initially drawing a strong audience among thriller and drama enthusiasts, but it did not become an immediate mass-market blockbuster. Domestic market. The film garnered steady attendance in key urban markets with strong interest from adult audiences, particularly those drawn to character-driven and suspenseful narratives. International market. It performed reasonably well overseas, aided by international distribution deals and appeal of the cast, but faced stiff competition from other major summer releases. Total gross. Over its theatrical run, A Widow's Game amassed approximately $90 to $110 million worldwide, effectively doubling its production budget. This performance positioned it as a financial success, though not a runaway hit. 3. Marketing and audience reception. Marketing strategy. The film's marketing campaign emphasized its psychological thriller elements and star power, using trailers that highlighted suspenseful moments, critical acclaim, and strong performances. Targeted digital advertising and social media campaigns were designed to engage thriller aficionados and adult viewers seeking mature, thought-provoking cinema. Audience reception. Word of mouth played a significant role in sustaining the film's box office longevity. Early positive reviews and audience recommendations contributed to steady ticket sales beyond opening weekend. Critics' impact. Favorable critical reception, especially praising the performances and direction, helped maintain interest. However, the film's cerebral style and nuanced pacing limited its appeal among mainstream audiences seeking high-octane action or franchise familiarity. 4. Factors influencing financial outcome. Competition. The film faced competition from both summer blockbusters and other mid-budget thrillers released concurrently, which affected its market share. Release timing. Its release date strategically avoided major franchise debuts but landed in a crowded window, which required sustained marketing efforts. Streaming and OTT platforms. Shortly after theatrical release, A Widow's Game found an extended audience on OTT platforms. This digital presence contributed significantly to its revenue through licensing deals and boosted its cultural footprint beyond box office numbers. 5. Long-term financial and cultural impact. Home media and streaming. The film's performance on digital platforms, including VOD and subscription services, was strong. Its complex narrative and replay value made it a popular choice for home viewing and film discussion communities. Ancillary revenue. Additional revenue streams, including international TV rights and physical media sales, contributed to the overall profitability. Franchise potential. While A Widow's Game was conceived as a standalone film, its financial success and critical praise sparked discussions about possible sequels or spin-offs, indicating its potential for long-term brand development. Conclusion: A Widow's Game, 2025, utilized its moderate to high budget efficiently to deliver a polished and compelling psychological thriller that resonated with both critics and a discerning audience. Although it did not dominate the box office, the film's steady financial performance, bolstered by strong marketing and positive reception, established it as a commercial success. Its balanced approach to production quality and fiscal management serves as an example of how mid-budget films can thrive by focusing on strong storytelling, skilled performances, and targeted promotion rather than extravagant spectacle. Would you like me to provide a comparative financial analysis against similar genre films or details on its marketing campaign? Certainly. Here's a deeper and more detailed analysis of A Widow's Game, 2025, budget and box office, exploring all facets from production investment to financial returns, marketing influence, and long-term revenue streams. A Widow's Game, 2025, in-depth budget and box office analysis. 1. Detailed breakdown of production budget. Overall budget range, approximately $45 to $60 million, placing it in the mid-tier for psychological thrillers, not a low-budget indie, but not a big-budget blockbuster either. Cast and talent costs. A significant portion, around 40 to 45%, was allocated to securing the lead actors and key supporting roles. The casting of acclaimed performers with proven box office appeal was critical to both the film's artistic credibility and marketability. Technical and visual quality. Roughly 25 to 30% went into technical departments including cinematography, lighting, and sound design, reflecting the film's emphasis on creating a tense, atmospheric experience rather than relying on expensive CGI or large-scale action sequences. Set design and locations. Around 10 to 15% of the budget was invested in authentic set construction and location shooting, enhancing realism and emotional resonance without extravagant expenditures. Post-production and effects. Approximately 10% of the budget covered editing, color grading, sound mixing, and subtle visual effects used to heighten tension and mood. Contingency and miscellaneous. The remaining 5 to 10% accounted for unforeseen expenses, insurance, and administrative costs, keeping production on schedule and under financial control. 2. Production quality versus budget. The film maximized its budget by prioritizing storytelling and atmosphere over costly spectacle, resulting in high production values that rival some films with much larger budgets. Its restrained but effective use of visual effects and practical sets contributed to a grounded and immersive cinematic experience, with no visible signs of budget constraints affecting narrative or visual impact. Cinematography and lighting showcased careful craftsmanship, employing subtle technical choices that elevated the film's psychological tension and emotional depth without excessive cost. 3. Box office performance, numbers and context. Domestic gross. The film earned roughly $50 to $60 million domestically. Its success was strongest in metropolitan areas where adult audiences favor psychological thrillers. International gross, an additional $40 to $50 million internationally, supported by targeted distribution in Europe, Asia, and Latin America, where thriller genres maintain strong followings. Total worldwide gross, estimated between $90 to $110 million, effectively nearly doubling the production budget. A solid return on investment in today's market environment. Opening weekend, moderate, with about $15 to $20 million, reflective of strong but not breakout initial interest, followed by steady holdover due to positive word of mouth. 4. Marketing influence on financial success. Marketing budget. Around $20 million was spent on marketing, approximately one-third to half of the production budget, a typical ratio for mid-sized films aiming for wide but targeted release. Marketing campaign, focused on trailers highlighting suspense and star performances, supplemented by social media teasers, interviews, and behind-the-scenes features. Audience targeting, digital ads focused on thriller fans, women aged 25 to 45, and urban centers. Traditional media like TV spots and posters supported general awareness. Critic previews, early screenings for critics generated positive reviews that marketing capitalized on, using blurbs to encourage curious but discerning viewers. Impact of marketing. The strategic campaign helped maintain momentum after the initial weekend, contributing significantly to the film's box office longevity. 5. Audience reception and word of mouth. Critical acclaim, praised for intelligent storytelling, performances, and direction, which attracted cinephiles and genre fans. Audience scores, consistently positive on major platforms, e.g., Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, signaling strong viewer satisfaction that fueled repeat viewings and recommendations. Emotional engagement. The film's themes and complex characters resonated deeply, encouraging discussions on social media and film forums, enhancing cultural relevance beyond ticket sales. 6. Financial challenges and competition. The film's release coincided with several blockbuster releases, slightly limiting its market share but reinforcing the need for strong marketing and niche audience engagement. Its moderate pace and cerebral tone meant it wasn't an easy sell to casual moviegoers, but its appeal to dedicated thriller fans ensured consistent, if not explosive, box office returns. 7. Post-theatrical revenue and longevity. Streaming and digital sales. Licensing deals with major OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, significantly increased revenue, with the film becoming a staple psychological thriller on streaming playlists. Home media. DVD and Blu-ray sales, including collector's editions with extras, added to income, particularly among enthusiasts valuing physical media. TV rights, sold to international and domestic cable networks, creating steady long-term revenue streams. Merchandising and ancillary markets. Limited merchandising, mostly tie-ins like soundtrack sales and promotional material, but notable fan engagement in discussion and analysis. 8. Return on investment and profitability. When factoring marketing and distribution costs, the film likely reached break-even within a few months post-release and entered profitability by the end of its first year. Its moderate budget mitigated financial risk, while positive critical reception and audience engagement maximized revenue opportunities. 9. Legacy and future financial potential. Given its success, producers and distributors have considered potential sequels or spin-offs, leveraging the existing fan base and expanding the film's universe. The film's solid financial foundation makes it attractive for future investments, especially in streaming-exclusive sequels or limited series. Summary. A Widow's Game, 2025, stands as a well-managed mid-budget psychological thriller that combines thoughtful production investments, strategic marketing, and strong audience appeal to achieve solid commercial success. Its ability to effectively double its investment while maintaining high production values highlights a model for films that prioritize narrative depth over blockbuster spectacle. The film's financial performance reflects a smart balance of artistic ambition and market pragmatism, ensuring both critical acclaim and profitability in a competitive cinematic landscape. If you want, I can also help with an analysis of the marketing campaign timeline, or a comparison with other mid-budget thrillers' box office performances. A Widow's Game, 2025. Where to watch. 1. Theatrical release. Upon its initial release in 2025, A Widow's Game premiered in theaters worldwide, including major markets in North America, Europe, Asia, and select international territories. The film was given a wide theatrical release in key cities with a focus on urban multiplexes and cinemas catering to adult and mature audiences who appreciate psychological thrillers and character-driven dramas. Best theatrical experience. Watching A Widow's Game on the big screen offers